you've decided to make a game. You've chosen an editor, you had this incredible idea that you're passionate about, maybe you've even started working on building it, your prototype. And that's when the anxiety hits, the self-doubt, the voices in your head. Will the game be good? Is this even worth spending the next year of my life on? Then you maybe get something up and running and share it with people, and you get the dreaded feedback. Making games is challenging enough, but being creative when you're full of self-doubt or taking on big features when you don't even want to get out of bed in the morning, well, that's just kind of doubly hard. And I've dealt with this throughout my entire career. I suffer from panic attacks. Actually, when I was working on Dawn of War is when I had my first one. I was actually driving across a bridge here in Vancouver to go to a games workshop to get some models, and my heart started racing. I couldn't see straight, literally. I was running out of breath. I just felt like I was having a heart attack. It was a full-blown panic attack, but I didn't know it until I spoke to my doctor later. And even though I've worked on games like Diablo and World of Warcraft, I've worked at Netflix for crying out loud, I've done some pretty incredible things, I'm still challenged by feelings of self-doubt and anxiety on a really regular basis. So I want to take a moment and just share my experience living with this general level of stress in a creative environment and talk about 5 things to avoid and maybe 5 things to do instead. Because as with all of my videos, we don't just want to talk about the problem. We want to talk about how to get better at solving it. Whether you're on a big team or whether you're a solo developer who's making something just kind of on your own, eventually you'll need to share what you've made with other people and they'll tell you what they think of it. Very often that feedback might not be what you want to hear. And I don't know about you, but I can often let that sort of feedback get me down. I can take it very personally. I remember sitting down with someone at Blizzard to go over the design for the crafting system for Diablo 2. It was my first real big system at the company. I put a lot of energy and effort into it. And I mean, they just tore it to shreds, man. It sucked. And it makes sense that we feel this way, right? I mean, we put a lot of ourselves into the creative work that we do, so it can just be hard to hear people say negative things about it. But being able to hear and engage with that negative or critical feedback is really important, as that's how we iterate and improve. Without that feedback, we don't maybe know what to work on next. So what's important is that we do our best not to fixate on it. This is where some tools, which I'll share later in the video, can help a lot. For me, the best way to manage this is to take mindful action on that feedback. Action can mean making a change in the game in response to it, or it can just be acknowledging that there's nothing to change. You got to keep in mind, just because someone gave you the feedback, it doesn't mean you need to make a change in response to that. They may make a valid point, but not everyone or everything is correct. Once I've taken action on that thing, I find it easier to put that feedback aside and just kind of let go of that negative thought, which might stress me out. Or if I do get that negative thought coming back, then at least I can go, well, have I done everything that I can about it? Yes, okay, and move on. This is where a good, trusted, and trustworthy mentor can actually be really helpful. The voice in your head often isn't your best friend. I think it can be really valuable to find someone you can lean on for advice and support, someone who'll tell you what reality actually is. For me, that voice in my head can spin these weird, terrible narratives about my own insecurities or that I'm not good at what I do. So when I can have someone that I can go to and say and ask them and be really clear and upfront with them and say like, hey, I've been thinking this a lot. Do you think it's real or not? They can call me on my crap. Now, ideally, this isn't your boss. Your boss, especially if you directly report up to them, they just may not be as honest with you as what you might like. And they might say what you think you need to hear. You may also just subconsciously be putting more bias onto what they say than what you might think, which can actually just make your anxiety kind of worse. One of my best mentors was at Relic Entertainment. Josh was leading Company Heroes. I was heading up Dawn of War. We were kind of at a similar level in the company, dealing with similar problems. And I could always go to him and share just very candidly with him what my brain was saying to me, and he would be able to level set me. Having a real person, not the voice in your head, who doesn't have an agenda or won't benefit from you being bad at your job, can be invaluable for telling you what is real and what isn't. There's a saying that people often throw around, which is you only get to release your game once. What this means is that you only get to make one first impression, really. And while I don't necessarily disagree with it, I'm not really sure that it's true anymore. With live service environments, you get to release your game and then update it as much as you need. And the downside to having this mentality of like, you can only get to release your game once, it can lead to this sense of needing to be perfect. I remember dealing with this when I first started doing some class design on World of Warcraft. It was a big sort of very pressure environment. Like people who were working there really knew what they were talking about. And I was always kind of afraid of building something and getting something in because I was afraid that it wasn't going to be able to live up to what other people on the team had done. This desire to be perfect, it can create a lot of really unnecessary anxiety, especially for someone like me who would love to try and just control everything. It can lead to attempting to make something that's perfect. It can lead to these situations where you're never comfortable calling something done because you're in this endless search for perfection, when in reality, that's never going to be possible. There's no such thing as something that's perfect. And this mentality can make us freeze up and then end up in a situation where we aren't actually doing anything. There's another saying by a pretty smart dude. He said, "Perfection is the enemy of progress." From what I've experienced, good game development is all about making progress every day. Sometimes that progress is bang on and exactly what you need to work on. Other days, it's just progress. But so long as you are making forward progress and getting something into the game, so long as you're playing something every day, that's good game development. Bad game development is when you're not doing anything. So what's important here is being able to give yourself permission to build things in a messy and imperfect way. And believe me, your favorite games do not have the best code. They're not set up in a perfect way. They are not perfect. Stormwind, one of the major capitals in World of Warcraft, is covered by invisible bunnies that you can't even see, but they're there because that's how the entire game works. All these bunnies are floating around and waiting for things to happen, like events to fire, so that they can cast spells, which makes things happen, like the kids running around in the street or a vendor saying something when someone walks by. That is not set up in a perfect way. That is terrible. Who the hell? No one thinks to like build a bunny system to have, interactive and entertaining cities. It's not perfect, but it does the job. Just try to keep in mind, a released game is better than an imaginary perfect game that no one ever plays. Much of my anxiety comes from what ifs. What if the game isn't fun? What if there's a bug? What if I'm not good at math? I'm not good at math, trust me. I dropped out of high school. I'm not good at math. Something I've found that can be helpful when my brain starts spinning out with these what ifs is to try and normalize things. This looks like pausing, taking a step back mentally, and kind of asking yourself, what's the actual worst that can happen here? For example, if the game isn't perfectly balanced, what's the worst that can happen? Like maybe players do too much damage, maybe they end up having a lot of fun. Is that actually the end of the world? Just to keep everything in perspective, we aren't building rocket ships. We aren't trying to cure cancer. People won't die if the games that we make aren't perfect, and neither will we. Anxiety from the what ifs is the fear of potential imaginary outcomes. By normalizing it with statements like, what's the worst that can happen? It can kind of level this out. It'll make it a little smaller and not as scary. Maybe even help us laugh at our own fears a little bit. And when you're laughing, it's really hard for anxiety to exist. I don't know about you, but I can be pretty kind of obsessive when I'm really interested in something. Like all-consuming, like it's all I'll think about. And for many of us, we make games because we're passionate about them. That passion and that mindset, though, can mean it ends up being like all that we do. Like when I'm in this mode, I play games, I watch streamers play them, I build them every day, I watch YouTubers talk about them like this, I read books about them, so on and so on and so on. I just think about them like all the time. It's all I want to focus on. That passion can just become all-consuming. And the problem with that is that it becomes also over-important. And when something happens in a game that we're working on, because we're so consumed by it, it feels much bigger than what it really is. This then results in even worse anxiety because everything that we do, every outlet that we have always comes back to game development. So just keep this in mind and try and keep things in balance. Don't just obsess about one thing and have that become all that you are, or all that makes you who you are. On that last one, I found that having hobbies that aren't work or gaming related to be just a nice mental break from things. For me, I like to build things. When I was young, I collected and painted a lot of Warhammer 40k miniatures. As I got older, I started doing woodworking and building furniture. Both of these activities are very different to making games, very different to the mental effort that's required there. What this does is it gives my brain a chance to focus on something different. Woodworking especially is very physical and tactile. The problems you solve when building a piece of furniture are very different to the ones compared to game design. In game design, they're very theoretical and ethereal. In woodworking, it's very physical. Having these hobbies lets my mind exist in a place outside of that doubt and fear that's all tied up with making the challenging decisions necessary to build a game. And that can oftentimes be enough to just kind of break me out of it. So whether it's woodworking or a sport like hockey or playing an instrument or hiking or hell, I don't care, bird watching, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that it's something which is distinctly separate from game development. It's something which lets your brain take a rest and engage in something different for a while, and preferably not on your computer. For me, my mood has a tendency to go up and down. It's nowhere near as bad as like bipolar or anything like that. Like I know some people who have that, that's not me. But I certainly have times when my mood is elevated and I'm energized and excited. And then I have other times when my mood is very down and I just want to hide in a corner and not talk to anyone for a while. When I'm down, everything feels harder. Getting out of bed, going to work, walking the dog, just everything can feel more challenging. But by being aware of this cycle of up and down, it lets me just kind of be okay when I am in this down phase because, well, I've learned my patterns and history has shown me that it'll pass. Because the pattern is I'll go down for a while and then I'll come back up for a while. Sometimes people find it valuable to write down how they're feeling on a regular basis throughout a month, like in a calendar or something, and then they can reflect and look back and go, oh yeah, I can see a pattern emerging there. By learning your patterns, you're getting a better understanding of who you are, how you handle things, and it also helps you realize maybe just because you're feeling down right now, you probably won't forever because you've seen in the past that it does go up and down. Unfortunately, there are loads of potential treatment options out there, way more today than there was when I first had my panic attack on Dawn of War. I personally find that things like meditation, breath work, movement, exercise, getting out and doing something, these things are all proven to help your mental health. For example, did you know that studies have shown that just 10 minutes of walking can help elevate your mood? And I highly recommend, if you're up for it, to explore therapy. I think it can totally be the right approach if you can find the right therapist. That was always my challenge, was finding someone that I could connect with. But once I did, I saw really good results. Medication is obviously out there, and look, be really upfront. I'm not a doctor, so please don't take this as advice. I went on a range of medications to manage the symptoms of panic attacks and so on and so forth. They never really helped me that much. They dampened the impact for a period of time, but I found the real solution to be through these other tools like meditation and therapy. What I recommend is, if you're feeling like you're struggling, go talk to your doctor. They're way more informed today than they have been in a long time, and they'll hopefully be able to guide you on the right path. But what's worked for you? What strategies have you put in place that help you? I mean, if you made this far, I have a feeling you're dealing with a lot of the same things that I am, and I'd love to hear how you've managed to overcome them, or the struggles that you're having with them. Share them in the comments below. Maybe they'll help someone else who's also watching this video. On top of this advice, most of my other videos also focus on how I find ways to make games being as stress-free as possible and as easy as possible. And I get way more into doing that in this video right here. For now though, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.